Okay, so exercise and atypical Parkinsonisms. I think it's a very important topic to discuss. There's not a ton of research that's out there to show the benefit of exercise, or to support it, I should say. But we'll explain kind of why that is, and even though there's not that research that's supporting it, right now there's a lot of amazing benefits that are going to help you and your loved ones function and move and feel better at home. So just a little bit of background on Movement Revolution and what we do. Our mission is to empower people with neurological conditions to live stronger every day. That goes from not just, we typically see our clients for an hour to 2 hours, to 3 hours a week sometimes, but obviously there are a lot of times throughout the day when you're not with us, or you're not with the physical therapist or the health or wellness professional in the program that you're working with at home. And it's really important to us to give you all of the resources to help function and move better every day in all aspects of your life, not just at the time when you're at the gym and you're exercising, you're doing your therapies. The most important thing is what you do at home. And right now, with the situation that we're in with the coronavirus, all of us are stuck at home a little bit more, and it's even harder to move and harder to have those resources. So I hope you guys find this webinar today gives you some tools and empowers you to be a little bit more active and stay as healthy as possible during these times. One of the things that we've been doing over the past month has been to work with people in their homes via virtual one-on-one sessions or live Zoom classes that we've been doing. And it's been a unique opportunity to really fully understand people's natural everyday environment. Our big focus is to assess kind of where you're at physically and give you good exercises here at the gym, but the most important thing is how those translate back over to your home. And right now it's kind of a unique opportunity for us to be able to do that, and that's what this presentation will be all about. So I just wanted to start with a bit of an overview on what PSP is and some of the symptoms associated with it. So some of you may know this very well by either living it or having a family member with it, but it's a progressive neurological condition and there is no known cure. It affects the part of the brain that controls movement, balance, coordination, speech, swallowing, cognitive, and eye movement. So all of these aspects are affected at various stages of the disease. One of the things that we see is that gait, mobility, and falls is something that's quite challenging for our clients with PSP, and walking does tend to become very difficult years into the diagnosis. And let me also preface this by saying it's a Parkinsonism. So it is not Parkinson's disease itself. It presents a lot of similar motor symptoms that comes along with Parkinson's disease, but it is a separate diagnosis in and of itself, and something that's diagnosed by your neurologist specifically. So if you have not been diagnosed with it, don't think that you have it. Always seek the consultation from preferably a movement disorder specialist. I can't stress enough how important it is to see a movement disorder specialist, but just knowing that kind of as a preface before we kind of get into the weeds on this a little bit more. But balance and coordination are some of the most common things, common symptoms that affect an individual with PSP, and a little bit faster than it would for somebody with traditional idiopathic Parkinson's. But there are several different factors that relate to the difficulties with balance and coordination. So I kind of want to jump into some of the symptoms, that are associated with it. And some of these are very Parkinson's-like, such as tremor, rigidity, and tightness, or slowness of movement, which is bradykinesia, right? It takes you longer to put on the coat. It takes you longer to, reach behind you and put your jacket on. So that slowness of movement is something that's pretty common. Spatial motor planning, we also call that proprioception, kind of knowing where your body is in space, can be difficult at times with various things, whether that's depth perception when going up and down stairs, turning quickly, kind of knowing where your balance is and where your feet are aligned as you go to turn and navigate different obstacles. That becomes a little bit more difficult. And then speech and swallowing as well. And then visual and eye tracking. I'm sure many of you know or have experienced the difficulty with watering of the eyes or really dry eyes, and an ability to look up or down or left or right. All of these factors, if you think about it, have an impact on your balance and your coordination. Whether that, vision being a primary one, what you perceive as you're doing things throughout your daily activity has a tremendous impact on how you feel and how confident you feel as you go about your day-to-day activities. So being aware of these symptoms is really step one. And we are all neuro exercise specialists here, and we are very aware of what these symptoms, how they present, and then how do you address these to positively impact balance and work on your coordination, understanding that some of these limitations may be there, but there's always an ability to improve the strength of your muscles and improve the mobility of your muscles. But understanding that all of these factor into that balance and coordination issue is something really important to look at when we're designing an exercise program. It's not, the rigidity and the tightness can be a component of it, but if you have a tremor that's pretty persistent throughout the day, or your body's not moving quite as quickly as it would be, otherwise that makes those muscles tight and rigid. So the tremor and the slowness of movement contributes to, or can contribute to, the rigidity and the tightness, which then also can contribute to the balance, mobility, and your day-to-day ambulation. So it's important to kind of understand how these symptoms present and how they affect you, and then accordingly address that with a proper exercise routine. One of the things that we find with our clients here, but also globally, I think communication becomes difficult because of the visual tracking, the perception, some of the facial expressions that can be difficult to understand. But then primarily speech and swallowing can become complex. And so getting a good understanding of how that affects one another and how it affects our clients really helps us communicate better. Because inevitably, if somebody has a difficulty with speech and swallowing, and sometimes cognitive processing is also somewhat of a challenge, those things affect how you internalize the exercise. If you're in a big group class, I know, if any of you guys have heard of Rock Steady Boxing, it's a non-contact boxing program for people with Parkinson's disease, as well as Parkinsonisms. That's a high intensity class where, there's a lot of people around you, there's a lot of things going on, and sometimes it's hard to internalize what you need to do personally. And a lot of that comes with some of these symptoms, but particularly, some of the visual tracking and and processing all that information can become difficult. So we really focus on, honing in on what you need to work on specifically, and then how you can adjust to what your symptoms are and make those adaptations as you go to do your daily exercise. So I want to go through these slides pretty quickly and kind of touch on some main points, and then leave a lot of time at the end for your questions. I want to make this as interactive as possible. I could sit here and talk for hours about exercise and everything else, but I want to kind of go through some of these basics. I have a couple of exercise demonstrations for you guys today as well, and we can go through those and then answer questions at the end. But kind of coming back, I mentioned in the beginning that there's been limited research, and as over the years, I've been looking to find more research on the efficacy for exercise and PSP, and there are articles out there, and there's a lot of the systematic review I have on this slide here kind of breaks down several studies that have looked at various sample sizes, but a lot of them are more case studies, which is just a one-off, this person diagnosed at this level, was doing these exercises, and here were the results. The reason why a lot of the research is limited and inconclusive is because a lot of the research that's been done has been on very small sample sets. And they've considered some of these studies to be a high level of bias. So they don't treat the outcomes from those studies the same way they would, a study with a large cohort where the results are unanimously, the same amongst the vast majority of the field. And a lot of the studies did not have a control group when we were looking at them. But I think the important thing to understand and draw from this is, having done this for 11 years and worked with a lot of people with PSP, exercise can help, and it does help. If any of you guys have done physical therapy or participate in an exercise program, there's always something that we can improve on, and something that we can work toward, and we're a firm believer in that, and that exercise can have a positive impact. There's been a ton of research out there that looks at how exercise positively impacts Parkinson's disease. The reality is PSP is a movement disorder, and we got to move in order to fight it, right? It tends to take movement away, but if you don't do anything at all, it'll continue to take, and we need to, hopefully I can advocate for you to be moving more in the right way to really work to fight those symptoms that you experience. But the research on Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, any kind of neurological condition has shown tremendous benefit across the board when exercise is done in an effective way, and done carefully, based around certain parameters. And we'll talk about what those parameters are as we go. But exercise has been shown to improve motor and non-motor symptoms of these neurological conditions. So not just, improving your ability to take a bigger step, not just improving balance and coordination, but also improving cognition. It's certainly something that's a little bit more challenging to do, but we find ways to try to challenge our clients both physically and cognitively as we go through our programs. And I challenge you to do the same thing within reason. Intensive cardiovascular exercise is one mode that has been shown to really help individuals with Alzheimer's and dementia kind of slow the progression of those conditions and really help keep that cognitive acuity as strong as possible. Okay. So I think it all starts, and this is something I'm very passionate about, is building your expert care team. With all the symptoms that we've already discussed, and all the programs that are out there, what's super, super important is to build your expert care team. And that I think that everyone listed on the left-hand side of this screen are each individually integral pieces of that care team. At the center of that is you and your family, right? We are all working for you, right? We need to learn from you and what you experience on a day-to-day basis and adjust our treatment plans or exercise programs based on your experiences. And that's really what we try to be for our clients, is educating ourselves as to how we can help you the most. And by doing that, you can be, I encourage everyone to be proactive versus reactive. If you don't have all of these individuals on your care team right now, seek them out, right? If you don't have any trouble with speech or swallowing or things of that nature, speech therapy can also help a lot with cognition as well and communication. Clinical social workers, I think that's a pretty underutilized profession that can really help you navigate some of the difficult conversations and difficult situations that we experience throughout the day and throughout the years. But this team should be working together, right? Hopefully your doctors are coordinating with your physical therapist, and they're communicating with the speech therapist, so we're all on the same page. That's one thing that I'm really strongly passionate about. It's great that we have all these people on our team, but if we're not communicating together amongst one another, it's gonna, there's gonna be some pieces left off that we're not gonna allow you to receive the most benefit from. So highly encourage you to seek these opportunities to work with these individuals and have everyone work together. We work really closely with physical therapists and occupational therapists to transition people directly out of a inpatient or outpatient physical therapy setting or therapy setting in general, and translate that over into continued community-based exercise. So, I think I kind of compare this care team to any kind of sports team, right? The doctor is the coach, and they're calling all the plays and they're sending in the signals. And, you know, I kind of consider ourselves the quarterbacks because, you know, the unique opportunity that we have as exercise professionals is the ability to see you on an ongoing basis with no limitations on, you know, Medicare expenditures or what insurance will cover. Yeah, that's the one thing I love about what I do is I'm able to see all of our clients throughout their lifetime. You know, we see our clients 2 to 3 days a week. How often do you go to see your neurologist or your other doctors? It's, you know, once every 3 months, once every 6 months. And our insight into how you're doing on a day-to-day basis is a really unique opportunity and a big responsibility that we take very, very seriously, and that I feel is really important to communicate with those other members of your team. And now more than ever, I think there are a lot of virtual resources that are out there, such as this webinar, but telehealth meetings, teleexercise, virtual live sessions. There are more resources now. I think if there's any silver lining to the whole coronavirus, I think that the opportunity to have resources and get information, such as you guys are doing today, the opportunity is there now more than ever. So, you know, seek out those professionals, and I have some resources at the end that I think you can help find some of these resources for you. I think the biggest one that I'd just like to touch on really quick is the community support organizations. You know, really important to find support groups in your community or exercise programs, either virtually or in person once the virus is up and cleared. It's important to have that social support. You know, that's the one thing that I see so much in our programs here, even for our clients with PSP who tend to participate in more individualized services and one-on-one services here. It's about socializing with everyone else at this facility that specializes in neurological conditions. Everyone's going through similar situations, and you can relate to others around you. So I think that is something that no one should feel isolated with a diagnosis or a condition that you have. Seek these opportunities to find these social supports opportunities. And I think one of the best places to do that is an exercise program. So let's get into talking about exercise and PSP. I think that exercise is an inclusive treatment opportunity. We are able to address a lot of the physical symptoms and a lot of the non-motor symptoms that we just discussed. You know, various forms of exercise can target various symptoms, and that's really what we try to do is hone in on what you need to work on the most, and utilize that exercise as a good opportunity to treat those symptoms. But the earlier you get started, the better. You know, unfortunately, with the progressive condition, we want to make sure you stay ahead of it. And you know, we have the kind of the fight back mentality with a lot of our programs here, and it's like, you know, we got to put the work in, and some days are harder than others. But you know, the earlier you start, the more consistent you are, the more results that you can see, and it's kind of stave off the progression. But our goal for all of our clients is to maintain your current functional status and to make improvements when possible. And I'm a firm believer that improvements can be made at any stage of the disease, whether you're in a chair or you're able to walk, you know, miles. There's always things that we can be working on, whether that's improving the mobility of your muscles, how you get in and out of the car better, so on and so forth. There's always things to work on. But you know, I can't stress enough how important it is to use, whenever you're exercising, use personal assistance or walking aids that you commonly use to get around the house safely. You want to have all of those aids nearby to keep you safe. Whenever you're exercising, whether that's at home or in a class, safety is of utmost importance. Do whatever you can do to maintain your safety and put yourself in good positions, in good places at the home to be more active. But have that person nearby, whether that's a family member, a spouse, or a care partner. And I think using a gait belt is something that's essential for everyone, and something that everyone should have inside the house, just to have in case. We want to target your most severe symptoms first. You know, what is the most challenging thing for you to do? We do an evaluation for all of our clients coming in, and that allows us to assess what are the most difficult things for you to do on a daily basis. How do your symptoms affect you the most when doing those activities? And then how can we address those symptoms first and foremost in whatever exercise plan and routine that you have? So being aware of them, acknowledging them, and then learning what are the best ways to combat those with specific exercises is really important. And that's why building that custom plan is super important. You know, you're gonna if you haven't been exercising, that progression and how you become stronger is going to start pretty slow. It's all about maintaining and building that steady progression that's going to help you achieve and accomplish some of those goals of improving your functional movements and monitoring your intensity as you go. You know, that's one thing that's really important. Everyone's a little bit different. Everybody starts at a different place, and you need to make sure that whatever you're doing is not necessarily keeping up with the person next to you if you're in a class, but it's really focused on how intensely can I work and should I be working to make the adaptations that exercise can help me with. And above all else, again, safety and limiting those fall hazards is super, super important. You can do a lot of exercises from a chair. I can give people a good sweat just sitting down in a chair. So always be safe. So, you know, a couple key factors to look at is as your symptoms change and your abilities change, so should your routine. You shouldn't be doing the same thing all the time. Try to do what you can as long as you can. And if you can make improvements, great. But be aware that as things change, so should your routine. If you're getting stronger, we should make things a little bit harder. If you're experiencing more falls, we need to address where those falls are coming from or what we need to do to try to limit them. So constantly changing and being aware of what you need to focus on the most is super important, as I've already emphasized a lot. Your home is the perfect functional training gym. As I mentioned before, you know, we're seeing a lot of clients in their homes right now via Zoom, and that's the perfect place for us to see, hey, what obstacles are hardest for you to navigate around the house? How far is it to walk from your bed to the bathroom? What do you have to do to get inside your house after coming in from the car? How far is the car away? You know, and how can we design your workouts to help you function better in that space? So let's take advantage of that while we are all stuck at home. I think the big thing is to make exercise fun and engaging. You know, a lot of times I know motivation is the biggest limiting factor for a lot of people to stay and adhere to an exercise program long term, and that's inevitably that's our goal, right? Is to remain as active as you can, as long as you can. And that's finding things you enjoy doing. But whenever you are doing exercises as well, you know, limit those distractions. Try not to have too much going on around you. You know, I find quiet places to work out and practice. You know, that could be your backyard as the weather gets nice. Hopefully some of you are in warmer climates than we are here in Chicago, where it's cold and rainy today. But doing these workouts in your backyard, if there's a room in your house that you enjoy sitting in the most, go there and do these activities. The more you can surround yourselves or your loved ones with places they're going to enjoy being, they're going to be that much more willing to do the exercises. If it's going to the botanical gardens or, you know, your favorite park, and it's not busy throughout the day, there's not a lot of distractions around, that's a great place to do it. I know sometimes getting there is a little bit more of a challenge, but if it's in your home, find a place in your home that's quiet, maybe put on some of your favorite music and do the exercise from there. One of the best things that you know, I've seen benefit a lot of our clients is to engage other family members to exercise with you. And I know sometimes if you're working out with your spouse, that spouse, you know, relationship can be tested sometimes with patience and communication. So having someone else come in to help out from time to time, whether it's a grandchild, a child of your own, and kind of run them through some different fun exercises, I think is a great way to change things up and to get the person engaged a little bit more in a different way. get some youth into the mix, and I've seen that work really well for a lot of our clients. So kind of going into some more specifics, we're going to be talking in the exercise demo, we're going to be going over what I call sequential skill acquisition, and that's essentially starting with simpler movements and building into more complex motor tasks. As some of you may understand and have experienced, it's hard to, do an exercise that has multiple steps, like a step to the side and press overhead, or a squat, or a sit to stand, and then you're going to punch, or even functional things like getting up from your chair, walking to the bathroom, sitting down on the toilet, and then getting back up. There's a lot of steps that are involved with that. And the way to improve those movements is you really have to break it down into very simple steps, practice those steps, and then build on the complexity. We'll kind of explain what that looks like here as we go. So this is a quick video that I wanted to share with you guys. I want you guys to leave with some tangible things that you can go apply at home. So this is an ideal setup on where you can become more active at home, and just some good tools and techniques for you to work from. So I'll go ahead and play that here. I hope we can hear it. Okay, so I guess you guys can't hear the video. I apologize for that. Thank you for chiming in and letting me know. I'll kind of just talk through what I have in this video, and I'm gonna have to do the same thing for the next video as well, I guess. But exercising from the bedside, I think, is one of the best places to really challenge balance and do some dynamic standing exercises. The benefit of doing that is if you were to have a person stand up at the edge of the bed and have a chair or your walker out in front of you, that allows you a solid surface to stand up and hold on to out in front of you. And if you were to lose your balance going backwards, you would fall back into the bed as opposed to falling back into a chair or something that's not as stable or as cushioned. So just, I think putting someone by a bed and saying, hey, if you fall back, you're just going to land on the bed, and that's fine. That's a great way to give someone with PSP the assurance that you can move big and you can be dynamic with what we're trying to do. And that's going to help improve the movement that you're trying to work on. One of the biggest things and the biggest quotes that I quote all the time for our clients is, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And this is a great way to challenge someone. And I think a lot of times one of the barriers to someone with PSP testing their balance or challenging their balance is the fear of falling. I think that's a very real fear with a lot of our clients. And if we can try to decrease that fear as much as possible, you're going to see a lot more benefit from whatever movement you're having them do. So real quickly, standing up at the edge of the bed, even sitting on the bed is a great place to become more active. If you have a wedge at home, it's a great way to do some lying down exercises. If your back pain, if anybody has back pain associated, you can kind of stuff that wedge up right behind your back. It gives you a little bit more support. And if you're sitting at the edge of the bed and putting that wedge back behind your back, you can do things like sit-ups or different core strengthening exercises, or stretching exercises while lying down. It tends to open up your hips a little bit more. So having a wedge or just a few stacked up pillows behind you and having the person sitting on the edge and then lying back on the wedge or the pillows is a great way to be a little bit more active from the bed. We'll see kind of a demonstration of how we use the dowel in a video later on. And what I'll try to do is maybe mute the video, and I can kind of talk you through it as we go through the workout. But a resistance band, I think most of us have those at home. If you've been in physical therapy, they can give you a TheraBand to work with. The other thing I have here is a belt that allows you to be and work through a few different range of motion and stretching exercises. And then actually the step, which is right next to me, I'm sure many of you don't have one of those lying around the house. But if you do, it's a great thing to put kind of right out in front of the bed and put the balls of your feet up on the step and have your heels kind of drop down off the step. You know, ankle mobility is something that does affect a lot of our clients with PSP. And if you think about it, you know, balance has a lot to do with the sensation and the mobility of your lower leg muscles. And the more mobile those muscles can be, and the stronger those muscles can be, the better your balance will be. So placing the toes on the edge of the step and just kind of putting pressure down through your heels should get a nice stretch in the back of the calf. And then you can also do an exercise like a calf raise where you're raising those heels up and back down while someone's seated, and that's typically going to allow you to feel more confident as opposed to standing and doing that same exercise. So, all right, let's keep going here. Okay, so I'm going to kind of quickly go through this. Some of the key components that we look at. You know, I think we've covered a lot of these, but being task specific. So making sure, you know, one of the things that we try to relate, and I encourage you to relate, is any exercise that you do, try to relate it back to something that you have to do on a daily basis, right? Standing up and down, getting in and out of the car. Having that functional application to whatever you're doing is going to allow the person to relate that movement into something that's going to help them on a daily basis. It's not just doing repetitions over and over again. It's like, hey, I want to do this to get better at that. So that's really important. And as you'll see in the video in a couple minutes, you know, integrating visual tracking and speech along with the exercises just helps keep people engaged. You know, in being an active participant in that exercise. A lot of times, if you're just asking someone to go through the motions, there's a huge benefit to not only for range of motion, but just being more engaged and activating more muscles. If you're counting or you're shouting or you're watching with your eyes as best you can as you do a particular activity. And safe and slow progressions are always really important, not increasing intensity too quickly. And I think the big thing is to don't ever stop exercise. You can adapt and you can modify and be innovative as we go, but don't stop. There's always something that we can be doing to keep the mind and the body engaged. So different exercise modes that I think everyone has heard of before, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but you know, everybody always asks, you know, what should I be doing? How often should we be doing it? And I think I broke it down into, these are things that you can do every day, and these are things that are going to be a little more rigorous that you want to limit, you know, how many days a week that you do them, but they're still really important. But the big key factors I think are the most important are keeping mobile with you know, regular low to moderate cardiovascular exercise, whether that's walking around the house or going for a walk outside. If you're cycling, if you have a recumbent bike at home, that's a great way to stay active and get that regular, consistent cardiovascular exercise every day. Even if it's 5 minutes and you got to work your way up to doing 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, even a little bit helps. Most importantly, though, I think mobility and flexibility, keeping those muscles flexible is going to be the best way to help build strength and maintain balance. If you think about a really tight muscle and you can't bend your leg, it's almost like walking on two sticks, right? If you start to lose your balance or you get a little nudge going over to one side, those sticks don't flex, right? I kind of use an example of a dry sponge. When those muscles aren't flexible, it's hard to move. So creating as much mobility as you can and stretching every day is really important. And then if you've been in physical therapy, you know, daily functional exercises like basic sit-to-stands and bridges off the bed are great things to practice on a daily basis. And these are things that you have to do on a daily basis. So adding a couple extra repetitions in is only going to help. And then when talking about, you know, when looking at things like speech and communication, doing those exercises is really important as well. Other than that, complex skill and balance exercises, Personal training or classes are a great way to address this. One of the classes that we have here, we do a lot of skill work and agility that focuses on really dynamic balance exercises and activities. We have a harness system that we use here to help with prevent any falls, but if you don't have that at home, finding a place where you can at least do some of these things safely is important. And then vigorous cardiovascular exercise. So it's important to do the cardiovascular exercise every day of the week, but a couple days out of the week, you're going to want to be doing that at a vigorous level, depending on, obviously being aware of any cardiac restrictions you might have. But if you're on a bicycle, cycling and being aware of your speed and how fast you're cycling is really important. So 60 to 100 RPMs, most bikes will give you that readout. There's been a lot of research that's looked at cycling for Parkinson's disease specifically, and it showed a lot of benefits on gait and balance and stride length of individuals that did vigorous cycling 3 days a week at 90 revolutions per minute or above for 30 minutes. Now, again, if you're not doing that right now, it's going to be hard to work your way up to that, but add a little bit every day, and that should help. And then finally, progressive resistance training is just a way to build strength with repetition with various exercises of that nature. So one of the things that you'll see in the video as we go into the workout is what I call movement calibration. And that essentially, it's a tool that I use to help our clients be more aware of how big their movements are. A lot of us will cue, and I hear a lot of therapists and a lot of spouses saying, take bigger steps. You got to take bigger steps. Big step, big step. Well, how big is big? And how much faster is faster? Like, just move faster. Well, it's hard for someone with PSP to understand what that is. So this technique helps them really understand, okay, it gives them a very quantifiable outcome measure to base their movements off of. So it's essentially looking at picking a specific spot in your house, counting how many steps it takes you to get from point A to point B, and then repeating it, trying to reduce the number of steps total, therefore to increase stride length and step efficiency within a safe parameter. So here's the workout that I want to kind of walk you guys through a little bit. Again, some precautions to be aware of. Always, make sure you're not pushing past any range of motion restrictions if you've had a shoulder replacement or a hip replacement. A lot of times there are range of motion restrictions that prevent you from going through certain ranges of motion. So be aware of those and don't push through that pain. Always have someone with you when doing particularly any kind of standing exercises or walking. When you are walking with a spouse and balance is an issue, let's make sure you're using a gait belt. If you don't have a gait belt, just go right in Amazon, search gait belt, and they're like $8, $9, $10. That can be delivered right to your door, and that just allows you a little bit of something extra to grab onto as you go to walk and use those assisted devices. So here's a little sample workout here. I can certainly hear it, but I know you can't. So I'll kind of fast forward through some of these parts. Just go through a little bit of range of motion work here to start off with using the dowel. And you guys hopefully can see the screen and the video playing. Please let me know if you can't. You can see me trying to talk a lot, but the thing that dowel really helps with is allows you to visually, have a very physical visual cue. And one of the things that we work on with tools like this is to track eye movement and associate that with other movements. Hold on one second. I know we can't hear the video, so I know some people might be having a difficult time with the screen. Can you guys hear me still talking? You can still hear me talking as the video is trying to play, I hope. But as you can see, as we go, okay. As we go, my eyes are following that dowel, going down and going up. So a lot of times that visual tracking of looking down toward the floor and gazing up toward the ceiling is a challenge for a lot of individuals with PSP. So going slow and really focusing on the range of motion is really, really important. Okay. So as we go, holding that position, having those eyes gazing up is a great way. And again, if there's any pain in the shoulders at all, just extending those arms out in front of you and getting that full extension of both arms is something really important to pay attention to. And that dowel allows you to have the stronger hand assist with the hand that might not be functioning quite as well to achieve that full range of motion. You can go through some trunk rotation work here. That one hand, so as I'm turning to the left there, that left hand can kind of help pull that right hand around for a little greater range of motion. Or if the right hand is stronger, you can push the left hand to get a little bit more mobility in the trunk. So good seated trunk rotation here, helping with things such as, you know, getting your seatbelt on while sitting in a car, turning your body to get out of the car, something really good functional practice here. So kind of talk you through the next one. So lower body mobility, okay? So one of the things that gets really tight with a lot of our clients with PSP, especially now, is we're probably not moving as much as we were. I know some people are moving a little bit more than they were before because they have more time on their hands, but the hamstrings are a muscle that get really, really tight. The top muscle in the back part of your leg, when you're seated for a long period of time, if someone is seated in a chair, or in a wheelchair for a prolonged period of time, those muscles get really, really tight. And the tighter those muscles are, the harder it is for them to take a bigger step as you kick out. The length of the hamstring dictates how far that leg can extend and kick out in front of you as you're going to do things like take a step. So that exercise is really, really helpful. Giving them a cue on what to reach forward to, you know, reaching forward toward the toes. Again, if you can't reach the toes, just get as close as you can. Is something that's going to be a good, again, visual cue for them to look for and reach toward. Let's go. So some lateral trunk rotation here. With all of these exercises, I'm doing this from a chair that has arms on it with a good base of support. Make sure the chair is not too tippy. And if someone needs those armrests to get up and out of a chair, have that available for them. Some of these exercises work a little bit better with a chair that does not have arms on it, but this is good for lateral trunk rotate or mobility. So, you know, a lot of times I see our clients, they have their favorite chair and they're kind of leaning over to the side. So that really compresses one side of the body and lengthens the other side. And, you know, getting better trunk mobility helps with posture. And then when you go to stand and walk, it's really important for balance. So what I'm doing here is cueing someone to reach down toward the floor and have the other hand reaching up toward the ceiling. If that's too tough on the shoulder, you can just raise that elbow up. But again, getting that good extension through the back side of your shoulder is going to help with scapular mobility and lateral trunk flexion, so picking something up off the ground. If you have an object for them to pick up and off the ground, that's something you can add in. If they need that physical visual cue that helps elicit better range of motion. And then if you can, from here, you know, there's that cue that I have someone reaching down toward. You can always put a stack of books by the hand if you want them to reach to the hand if they can't get all the way down to the ground. Stack up a bunch of books or maybe some pillows that they can physically reach and touch. And then also visual tracking, right? Looking down to the floor and back up again. You can cue that as they're holding these positions. Again, kind of engaging visual perception and while trying to maintain a stretch. It kind of helps them hold the stretch a little bit longer and gains a little bit more range of motion with the activity itself. Let's see. Let's keep moving along here. This video got a little long when I shot it the other day, so now we're going to work on a little bit more activating exercises for posture. So great seated exercise, again, for visual tracking, shoulder stability, and posture here. So really trying to achieve full extension through those arms and opening up that chest nice and big, kind of sticking that chest out like Superman, and cueing them to reach out and open up those fingertips as much as they can helps, you know, some of that fine motor dexterity work that we try to work on. So I always cue to explode those fingers as much as you can and open them up as wide as you can. And then again, kind of looking from side to side always helps as well. So I know clapping is sometimes a difficult thing for people with PSP to do. But with this exercise, as you open up and pull it back together, that clapping sensation or the pressing of those hands together just gives you more proprioceptive feedback on, hey, this is how, you know, my hands are strong. This is what I need to be focused on. It just gives them more engagement within this activity. So any way that you can find to, you know, whether that's a physical cue that you need to look at, or squeezing of the hands or clapping of the hand, gives them some good cues to focus on. All right. So now we're going to work on different progressions to help people get up and out of a chair and ambulate once you get up and out of a chair. So a seated march, good core strengthening exercise. It helps strengthen the muscles of your hip flexors and your abdominals. It's the secondary movement that you have to do when you go to stand up and then go to take a step. So very functional exercise to help the muscles that help with ambulation or walking. Really important here. And then I add in a stepping out to the side. So again, a functional exercise. What kind of motion do we have to do when doing that movement? Okay. Here's another little cue. Okay, it's a threshold, right? So getting in and out of the car, right? You got to step up and over the threshold of the car, giving them that physical cue to mimic the same motion that you have to do when you get out of the car really helps them relate it to something that's going to help them feel and move better outside of just this workout that you're putting them through. It can be a block. That's a yoga block that's in the video here. It could be a shoe. Again, it could be a stack of books. The closer that object is to your feet, the easier it's going to be. And as you move it farther out, that's going to make the exercise certainly more complex and more difficult to do. So now as we go to get up and out of a chair, I know that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do. So this is one of the first things that I work on when training someone to improve their ability to stand up and sit back down, is give them that physical cue, whether it's a dot on the floor or an object you're reaching for, and just have them reach forward and touch that object every single time. That helps get your hips off the chair. That's oftentimes the hardest battle, is to kind of get that body weight shifted forward. A lot of times, you know, falling back into the chair is a very common thing that I see for our clients with PSP. So getting that body weight forward is step number one. And then as you go to progress that into a stand, keeping that forward momentum, and as you go to stand up, it's going to help reduce that retropulsion going back into the chair. So again, repeating and doing this exercise well, getting that full range of motion before you go to have them practice a stand is really, really important. And then as you go to stand, one thing I'd recommend is have that chair next to you. Have that chair out in front of you if you tend to lose balance going forward. Again, surrounding yourself with enough safety mechanisms to do these exercises safely. This is one of the best, most fundamental strengthening exercises that's going to be going to help you ambulate and get up and about better day in and day out. Again, finding ways to encourage them to get better. You know, one of the things that we do is establishing goals. So set a time frame. Say, hey, let's see how many you can do in a minute. Count total of number of repetitions, practice the movement, and then coming back to it the next week. Hey, last week we did 5 in a minute. Today, you know, let's try to shoot for 7. See if we can get a little bit better. And with repetition, you can get much stronger. And having that physical cue to reach forward to as you go up is going to be helpful. And then to prevent that kind of plopping down in a chair as you go to sit, we always want you to be doing that slow and controlled. You can reach back down toward the block as you go to sit down as well. So reaching down to that block is going to help in each direction, going up and down from the chair. So now transitioning from the stand, after you stand, we're typically going somewhere, right? So we got to move and take that first step. And sometimes that first step is the hardest one to do. So I always come back to weight shifting, and shifting your weight from side to side really helps you unweight one leg in order to take a step with the next. One side is commonly harder to shift and hold your weight onto than the other. So as you go, I always try to cue the hands, because anytime you can get the upper body moving bigger with the lower body, that's going to help improve weight shifting. And then that helps prepare you to go take a step. So as we go into the steps, have that walker, wheelchair, you know, if necessary to do this next exercise. You know, keep all those obstacles clear from wherever you are. Make sure there's nothing to step over. Let me try to get back to where I was here. So this is that exercise, the calibrating of the steps, right? So what I'm going to do in this first one is just walk naturally. Just say, hey, let's count how many steps it takes you to go up and around that chair. Okay, total number of steps. I think on this one, it takes me about 16 steps. And as I get closer to that destination, as I'm sure some of you have seen, those steps become really, really small and tight. And that's where balance tends to become more compromised. But this is an opportunity for us to kind of cue that motion and cue those steps. So what I'd say is, okay, it took us 16 steps to get back to this chair, but the last 2 feet, you took 6 steps, right? So on this next time, let's try to get all the way around the chair and back in front of the chair safely without lunging into the chair within 12 steps. So give them a new goal to achieve, and relating that stepping motion with a number as opposed to just saying, hey, go take a bigger step, step bigger, should help achieve better movement rather than just giving them an arbitrary, you know, big cue. So that's just a little taste of how we can kind of progress through exercises from a seated position up to a standing position, and then obviously into walking as well. So that's the gist of what I wanted to go through today, but I wanted to leave you guys with some resources as well. And before we get into questions, you know, we have an at-home program that we've started since the coronavirus has set in. We have a couple coaches joining us on this meeting today, and we're looking to get them back into our mix as quickly as possible. And, you know, we're doing in-home consultations and evaluations along with these webinars that we're going to be hosting for the next 3 weeks. We're also going to be having one talking about diet and nutrition relating to neurological conditions as well. Everything that we do is really focused and very specific to how can we improve the wellness of our clients living with neurological conditions. So anything that we can do to help, we can do so more now, do more so now virtually with these Zoom calls and things of that nature. But I'll give you some more information on that as we go, or at the end. And then Cure PSP. It's a great resource, a great website with a lot of good information. We talked about those social support networks. This is a national organization. They have resources for all of you that live all over the country. And I don't know if anybody's from outside of the U.S. I think we may have had a couple people from Canada. There might be some good resources on there as well for you guys. I actually want to say it's a Canadian company, potentially. If anybody's from Cure PSP, forgive me. Nonetheless, they have great resources and local resources for support groups, online discussion groups, and just learning more information on how to live better with these conditions. We're trying to provide you as many resources as we can to stay active, and they have a tremendous amount of resources that are going to help you live better on a variety of different levels on their website. So as I mentioned, you know, these are our virtual at-home programs that we're offering right now at Movement Revolution. You know, as I mentioned, I think one of the most important things for everyone to have at some point is an evaluation, a fitness evaluation, how you can be more active physically with exercise, not just therapy. I mean, I think a lot of us have gone through physical therapy, but, you know, how do I address that from an exercise and an ongoing wellness standpoint? That's really, really important. Right now, we're doing these Zoom neuro evaluations at no charge, just to help you guys get a good roadmap on, you know, how you can become stronger. We are doing individualized Zoom training, which has actually, you know, been a tremendous help for a lot of our clients. You know, right now we're seeing some people in Florida, some people that have left our program that have moved down to Arizona and places like that we're now able to get back to and see. So it's a really unique opportunity to do that. And then we're also offering live Zoom classes every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But we do require that everyone goes through that initial evaluation first. We feel very strongly about establishing a relationship with you and your family to really understand what you need to work on the most. It's not just a class and a video that we're throwing up there for anyone to follow. We want to help you, treat you and what you need to focus on the most, and that's why we want to do that evaluation first. It's a quick 20, 30-minute Zoom call to kind of talk through a few things and go from there. But we do have some online videos that you can follow at home with some general stretching exercises as well. Those are on our YouTube page, and I'll have a follow-up email from this webinar today with some of those resources that you guys can access there. But this is a part of a community grant that we received from the Parkinson's Foundation for something that we call the Parkinsons CoOp, and that is an opportunity for us to engage people with Parkinson's and Parkinsonisms in a variety of different levels that include exercise, education, socialization, and financial support. So we thank the Parkinson's Foundation for making this and these webinars possible. And with that, I can answer any questions here. Let me open up. So feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and I'll go and address those questions as they come in. So feel free to open up the chat menu and type those in now if you'd like, and I can start to answer them. Okay, let me pull the chat menu open. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to put any questions in that you might have. If we don't have any questions, that's good too. That means apparently I was relatively thorough. I know I can talk a lot and I can talk fast. If anybody would like to communicate with me afterwards, I'll put this screen back up. This is my email address directly, so if you have any questions regarding PSP or any of the programs that we have, or any way we can connect you with people in your area, we're more than happy to help in any way we can. I hope you found this webinar insightful and you left with some good tips that you can practically take home and integrate at home. So I thank you guys for joining us. Let's see. So one of the questions was, are you thinking we could do these exercises together? So the exercises that I put together in that short video, yeah, I think are exercises that I want you guys to practice on your own. But if you guys want to practice right now, kind of get into a good position and go through some of those techniques. And I'll try to post some of these exercises up on or that same video for all of you to access after the webinar today. I'll provide you the link to that YouTube video that you can go back and watch and practice on your own. I know everyone kind of works at their own pace, so I think that that's something that that I highly encourage, is to not necessarily focus on going at the same speed as someone else, but really taking the time, pause the video if you need to, practice a movement, and then come back through and do another movement as well. So are there any other questions? All right. Well, we are going to be back next week to talk about multiple systems atrophy and how we design workouts specifically for that population. If there's anything that we can do to help your community, whether that be with resources or support groups, and want to get involved in some of our classes, please let me know. We are a resource wanting to help as much as we can. Strongly passionate about keeping you guys active. So, I thank you guys very much for being here. And if you have any questions to follow up, just shoot me an email, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.